One thing, and we were talking about so much production between me and you and how we're going to make this a producer's dream as far as all the technology and the HD and going back and forth. But one company that's also gone haywire as far as just improving their production as well since the beginning of the year is WWE. And you watch Raw every week, you watch SmackDown every week as well. And we'll get to Kevin Dunn in a minute. He retired at the end of last year. What have you noticed that are big changes with WWE's production that you'd like to pick up on and that has impressed you?
Well, I think the number one thing is sticking with one camera organically through, say, an entrance. For example, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, most famously recently, were coming through the concourse, down through the crowd, and there was very minimal cuts. And if we can bring it up as B-roll, by the way, we'll give credit to anybody. We get videos. There's a spot for the breakdown that we're going to talk about. We'll give credit to other channels, fans that film this stuff. But one channel in particular, they put up an excellent split screen of the number of camera cuts today, post Kevin Dunn and Vince McMahon, as opposed to during the Kevin Dunn era. It was something like 24 camera cuts from Kevin's era compared to now, maybe 6 or 7 at the most. So I would say it's more of an organic type of presentation and production as far as before. It was like, it kept it going with camera cuts. And for people that don't know, it's very difficult in wrestling to direct the matches unless you understand the moves, you understand the match, and also you know the finishes and false finishes to a certain extent. Because the number one thing that I was taught, at least from a production standpoint, is you cut on impact, or you cut at the beginning of the action. If you ever notice when somebody goes to take a bump or somebody goes to hit somebody, they would cut the camera, first of all, sometimes to hide the space on, say, a punch that was a work punch, but also to create more. They do it in movies. They cut on the action or on the bump or on certain violence. And they overdid that during the Kevin Dunn era to a certain extent, to where it almost became nauseating. Now with WWE and TKO, they have more of an outside look of the way, I guess, television production on a sports level should go. You know, you stay with the action, you stay with the moment. Also, one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time, and it was recently on Raw as we're recording this, was when Braun Breaker and Ludwig Kaiser were running around the ring and Braun Breaker speared them. They had that overhead shot that they used to do way back, and this is for people that might not even be alive. Remember the entrances? Like, say, there was that new generation era of WWE, WWF at the time, but Owen, Hart, or Brett, they would shoot over the ring and have the hologram spinning logo. I love that, dude. That was awesome. And that camera cut gives me a little bit of like goosebumps, because it's like when you see something that sticks in your memory, especially as a 30+ year veteran, that's a really cool moment caught in a cool way. So that's a very deep dive into the differences. But I would say number one, camera cuts. Number two would be more behind the scenes, morphed into what goes on in the arena. I really like that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about with Brett and Owen, WrestleMania 10, and I think there's a bit where, I don't know if it was on a DVD later on, that they released like that camera angle for a prolonged period of time, but it's almost like Owen and Brett are going for like a leg grapevine or a heel hook or something like that, and I think Owen like hits him, and then Brett just turns to him and points. But that entire camera cut is that angle is all from above, and it's fantastic. And I wonder if they gave up on that purely because it was a pain to get that set up in the rafters every episode, I guess.
Well, I don't think so. I think they relegated that camera angle to the Money in the Bank, to anything where they're high up, the ladder matches, the top of the cage. They'll get that camera angle there. I don't think anything is difficult or impossible for the WWE production team. There's people I think that are still there, even though TKO seems to be laying people off and replacing them with TKO UFC staff. But you've got guys like Marty Miller back in my day, Stu, tons of other people that operate these steady cams, handhelds, and they know exactly where to go. For instance, WCW's big, like, joke back in the day was the cameraman, the handhelds were shooting each other. You always saw the handhelds in the other handheld camera angle, where Vince, I remember him, he was so OCD. You think we're OCD about production. Vince, famously in Beyond the Mat, can I just get a clean shot? There was one cable on the floor. That's where the handhelds in WWE and their production cannot be matched. Because tell me one time that you see, outside of when they get bumped, tell me one time you see a handheld cameraman shooting another one.
I love that. That's where Vince and, let's say, the Turner Broadcasting was entirely separate, because Vince was shooting TV, whereas Turner was shooting sports in that sense. But I always loved seeing the cameras around. I don't know if I'm just in the minority there, but it gave it a more sports presentation feel. Even seeing because WCW would always do this, was always have a guy stood on the apron and then in the corner, and then, someone would throw someone in that corner. It felt like they were coming straight into your living room kind of thing. And there are a couple of things that I don't know if WCW innovated, but I really enjoyed the way they did it. And I thought Nitro was shot fantastically.
Yeah, that's a good point. But they also, technology caught up, and GoPros and other cameras that were high quality broadcast cameras. The GoPros gave you the shot you needed, but not with the same quality of the $60,000-$80,000. And now with 4K and 8K cameras, they're a lot more. But I would say that WWE also, when they come back from commercials, I love the fact that they have the handheld walking down the aisle to the ring as the action's going on, and then going around the ring. Touching back on that, they've gotten more creative, common sense, organic shots down now, where I think, it's like the saying from The Dark Knight: you die a hero, you live long enough to become the villain. What Kevin and Vince in their own little production bubble didn't really see. Now backing up, and I know we took deep dives already, backing up into the WCW thing, you said they were shooting sports while WWE was shooting TV. The NFL does the same thing. When have you ever seen an NFL camera shoot another camera? They are very careful about segmenting their, I guess, designated camera angle area, and they never go outside that vision. It's really well done. There's so much that goes in before the match even starts, before the show even starts, that I think even on an AEW level, there's a lot of stuff they do production wise that reminds me of Nitro in a good way. And these companies and these people that work hard need to be appreciated for that.
So you mentioned before with the Kevin Dunn thing, where he, over the years, and I think it really kicked in with the HD era in 2008, where all of a sudden the camera cuts were more frenetic, the zooming in and out thing. You also said to hide the misses, which is, I think they were really paranoid about high definition at that point, and then it just continued on for ages. And also gave me epilepsy. The other thing is okay, I'm going to give you a film example. Have you ever seen Basketball? It's the South Park guys.
Yes.
So there's a bit at the beginning. I've not seen it in years, but there's a guy who's talking about bringing basketball to TV, and they say something like, that kids these days, their attention span can be measured in nanoseconds, and the guy with the curly hair is just looking up at a bird, open mouth like that. And I'm sort of thinking, is that how Vince and Kevin Dunn saw their audience, as people MTV generation style who had absolutely no attention span at all?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I know that Vince tried his best at one point to keep his pulse on what was current, or at least defer to people that had better clue. He was much better at delegating back then than he is, well, he's not around now, but then before.
Very well, we don't do quickly on this. Should we save the Kevin Dunn stories for another time? Or I don't even know if you have many, really. You seem to be an elusive figure.
Well, I don't really. I was always interested in getting into the truck and learning the backstage stuff and learning production and see how things are directed. I had that opportunity in TNA for the short time I was there. David Sahadi was there in the truck, and actually Terry Taylor and Vince Russo were encouraging talent to go in there, be respectful, peel back and just watch, be a fly on the wall. But it was very, very interesting to see that. Dude, you have no idea you do, but people don't have any idea. You sit in that truck, it's a wall of little tiny screens. And you got to not only say, cut the camera 3, cut the camera 4, cut back to 1, give me a hard cam. You have to give them the heads up as you're saying, like Marty, for example, hey, Marty, get around to near the table side, or the commentator side. Hey, get ready to cut the camera 2. Now they're going to do this. Get ready to cut back. Give me a wide shot of the crowd. This is like, as it's happening live, it's an incredibly difficult job. That's why David Sahadi, Kevin Dunn, whoever's doing it now, lots of people. Who are the other people? Neil Pruitt got brought in the AEW. There's people that have almost lifetime opportunities because once you have that skill, it's hard for somebody to pick it up.
I've been in production trucks before and, done the producer thing, switch to this camera, prepared, etc. And it's almost like sort of diving into a hobbit hole of just darkness. All you have is darkness and screens. And you almost have to like prepare yourself for like 6 hours of being in this room as well and then being totally in the zone. It is a very, very hard job to do as well, especially because you're feeling that pressure constantly to get it right. And then you're responsible for however other many people, and then you've got the comms on it anyway.
I mean, if you got me just to close up that point,
oh yeah,
if you think it's difficult in the ring because it's live and you only got one chance without messing it up or completely botching, imagine if like they miss a camera angle and then everybody gets flustered and they keep missing. Now, like that's worse than botching the actual move, is missing the good stuff, but then getting the botch. It can quickly become a nightmare.
Well, that goes back to WCW as well in a sense, because they had a revolving cast of production, like cameramen at least, who would be brought in from different divisions of Turner Sports. So you could have one guy who was doing the hockey or basketball, I guess, Turner had at the time, and still.
I'm not sure about that. I know Jackie Crockett was, I think, the lead cameraman on that. He was always the constant, but I wasn't sure if I wasn't there long enough. We can talk about my 4 months in WCW, but I wasn't there long enough to get to know how the cameraman or the production staff and he even had a stunt guy, Ellis, that was in WCW, and he also, I think, worked at WWE as well. So there were some people that were static, but I'm not sure about the people that might have been roving around from the Hawks to the Braves back to WCW.